If you look at India, one of the extraordinary things that you would have seen over the last several years and possibly a decade is that India is investing hugely in infrastructure. So, whether you're talking about roads, you're talking about bridges, you're talking about ports, and there is an absolute explosion of airports. Whilst there are high speed trains and more of them are coming, but to be honest with you, the shape of India and the size of India means even if you're sort of, you're having a fast train, you still would like to have a plane journey. And the number of airports, privatized airports, that is expanding not just to the A and B cities, but C and D cities as well. More importantly, previously, the way the airline networks used to work is that they would have a hub and spoke model, not just the state owned enterprises, airlines, but now they have been privatized. Even there's a whole spate of smaller ones and new ones that are coming over. But now what's happening is that you actually have got point to point flights as well between the C grade cities in themselves, obviously not at that high frequency. But the network that is getting connected within India through the airlines is extraordinary. This, in effect, means that the number of aircraft orders that are being placed has shot through the roof. Now, let me just clarify a few more things. Whenever we talk about aircraft and whenever we talk about airports, everybody thinks that we are talking about passenger aircraft. But very few people know that the passenger aircraft piece is, whilst it is big, it's not as big. There are other sectors as well, which is quite important. So we're talking about the transportation, the transport aircraft. There's a substantial increase in, for example, air ambulances, where you got helicopters as well as smaller aircraft. Then you're talking about irrigation. Then you're talking about satellite the mapping. So the number of airframes, whether helicopter, passenger, cargo, is absolutely expanding. And according to some estimates, over the next 3 years, we are looking at anything between 8 to about 15,000 airframes that will be new on the ground. Now, all very fine and good. But then somebody has to pay for it, somebody has to buy it, and somebody has to operate it, which is where that arcane thing called as leases come in. Now, very few people, especially airlines or aircraft operators, buy planes outright. You might hear the headline saying, XYZ airline has just placed an order for 100 Airbus planes or 200 Boeings or things like that. But actually, they don't. Far too often, what happens is that the planes are actually leased by the airlines. And there are two ways of doing this. One is that the airline will go to a leasing company who already has got these planes on their books, and then they would say, I would like to have 50 of them. And the reason why they do that is because they don't want to take the entire responsibility of scheduling, maintenance, crew, uniforms, everything. So the leasing company actually gives them a package solution. Oh, you want to have 50 aircrafts, 200 landing slots, operating for 600 days. So it is a very flexible way of operating a fleet. And that is what is called as operating leases. The second type are what is called as financial leases. Look, these are expensive pieces of kit. And airlines obviously do not have that much amount of money hanging around. So what happens is that they operate a lease-like structure so that when they are paying for it, they buy it, but they pay for it over the life of the lease. So that is called as the financial lease. Now, clear? Very simple, isn't it? Now, it gets complicated. Let's unpack it. So with me, I've got my two colleagues. One of them is the super regional head of Apex, and she's very well known in the industry. And one of her gems in her crown is Ireland. And for some very, very interesting reasons, Ireland has become the world center for aircraft leases. I'm going to ask Navita to introduce herself. And she obviously has got a very interesting background, which is germane to our discussion. She knows India, she knows obviously Ireland. I'm going to ask her about her background, I want her to tell us about what is the Ireland business, and specifically why does she think Ireland is so good when it comes to aircraft leasing, and why is Apex that well? Lots of questions, Navita.
Thanks, Bhaskar. To answer your first, the easiest question perhaps is that I run Europe for Apex and I've been in capital markets for the last 2.5 decades. Ireland is really a gem in our portfolio across Europe. We manage over 3.5 trillion across Apex, and 60-70% of that asset base is sitting in Europe. Aircraft leasing ecosystem in Ireland is one of the best in the world, both from tax treaties, tax incentives, creating an ecosystem where lenders, investors, and aircraft leasing companies can come together. And this has been going on for at least 15 years. And hence, I would say, at least till pre-COVID, the main aircraft leasing center in the world has been Ireland. With typically what we see is, as Apex, we are the dominant player in the market with more than 40 billion in aircraft portfolios. And having seen that, this market has only grown. Of course, we saw some stagnation during COVID for obvious reasons. But you were talking about leases, dry leases or wet leases. Ireland provides a perfect environment. Now, cut to when we look at the growth of aircraft industry all over the world, depending on passenger traffic, we generally see narrow-bodied planes being the most leasable assets in this population. When we look at the growth of planes, Asia has the top tier growth for a long time. But much of this lease was happening through Ireland, given the ecosystem Ireland provides, and it continues to be so. And having worked in Asia for a while, and understanding India a lot, the new gift city structure in India and the gift city ecosystem in India is well poised to compete. And when I say compete, I also mean collaborate. There's a lot of incentives and policy, I would say, dole-outs in the Indian financial center. And that, coupled with the growth of the passenger market, aircraft market, is a very heady combination. And as Apex, we are well poised to combine our capabilities and knowledge and talent in Ireland to support the growth of aircraft leasing ecosystem in Gift City. And whether it is Indian carriers or whether it is foreign carriers, and when I say foreign carriers, foreign to India, is the Asian growth can also be captured through Gift City. So, at this point, there is China, there is Singapore, where a bit of aircraft leasing happens, but Gift City is I think well poised to sort of capture that growth. And we at Apex are fully capable. We have very strong teams in Dublin taking care of these aircraft leases. And not just the aircraft lease, but also, we provide end-to-end services to investors to these aircraft leases, and also to the lenders in the aircraft leasing system. So I think when we combine these two, our capability in Ireland and the growth and the mandate of Gift City, I think it can be a very strong combination.
Great. Neeraj, let me bring you into the conversation. The obvious question is, I mean, you heard what Navita said from the perspective of Europe. And if you're talking about owners of the aircraft who are trying to, let's say, lease aircraft to Indian buyers, she thinks it's a great idea. And because of the nature of the demand shifting to the east, Gift City is a good place for this. But I'd like you to unpack why Gift City suddenly, and why are the numbers growing, And what would you say to an Indian airline who's coming in?
So just to give you some context, in Gift City is the India's only international financial center. And because it's an international financial center and hence the typical challenges in India, which are like capital controls, high taxation, really doesn't exist in Gift City, which means it's very easy for the investors and the leasing companies to operate out of Gift City. Second, because government really want to promote it, and hence there are a lot of tax benefits that have been rolled out. There is a unified regulator that has been brought into Gift City, and hence the approval mechanism is quite fast. Now, today, if I look at the growth of India, and India being the most populous country, and hence the growth of India will depend upon the rate at which some of the air carriers will grow. And if I'm correct, some of the largest carriers in India have ordered more than 500 planes. And when they will come, and if it's a fact that 80% of all the planes in India are on leasing, which means you need a solid service provider in Gift City to be able to handle these transactions. Apex, with the kind of knowledge and expertise that we have, is well poised and positioned to address both the issues. Second, because in a typical aircraft lease, it's about the comfort that comes from the lender to the lender, given to the lender, manufacturers, history, legacy, ease of legal formalities, and the tax benefits. It's about preparing the right ecosystem, handling the client on both sides, which means if the lender and manufacturers are preferring, let's say, Ireland, which has time tested, proven, and have done it multiple times for so many companies, and Gift City, which is India's first international center, a lot of promotion, tax incentives being available to the carriers in India. And hence, as a service provider, as a solution provider to our clients, we intend to really give them one stop, which means let it happen in either of the jurisdiction or both the jurisdiction. As a service provider, we have brought all our knowledge, technology, and systems in Gift City. We have a large office in Gift City, people in Gift City, and we have that kind of experience of managing it in Ireland, which means we are very, very transparent to our clients, saying that, hey, how you want to structure it depends upon what your lawyers and other service providers say, but then let us handle it and in the jurisdiction as you want. One important element that probably I've also understood is that because it's on leasing and hence cash flows matters a lot, routing it through Gift City, there are much lower withholding taxes. In few situations, actually, it may turn down to become zero. And hence, from a cash flow perspective, it adds the fuel because the money can move multiple times, and hence the ability to have more aircraft on leases by this carrier goes up. So that's our understanding.
So you heard from both of my colleagues. Let me just add a few more things as I close. Look, these airframes live on for a very long period of time, and the period of the leases are for decades. You need a big, solid institutional firm that you know is going to support you for several decades. Apex has been around for 2 decades, and looking at the growth and the presence of such senior executives, you will have that support on a consistent long-term basis. The other thing is, because we have got presence in both the locations, which are very strong and growing, you always have the support. So whether you are accessing this service from the Irish side or from the Indian side, you will always have one person that you can face off to. So whether you are the chief operating officer or the CFO of an airline, or you're down to the person who's dealing with the bank accounts, or you're the lawyer sitting there and wanting to review the lease agreements, at any point in time, you will only face off to one person. Thank you very much for watching. And if you wanted to talk more about aircraft leasing, please reach out to us.